comes to literary features in chapter 15 of the novel Once, we find a very different tone in this chapter to what we found previously. The real highlight of this book, the climax of this book, is chapter 13. At the end of chapter 13, Felix realizes and comes to understand that his parents are dead. Everything has been leading up to that. Here, they're about to be shipped off to the death camps, and there's a tone of sort of resignation in this chapter that they can't fight anymore, that there isn't any hope. Now, there's a literary device that's used in here that evokes that feeling, and that is alliteration. A lot of alliteration is used in this chapter, and I'm going to point out to you a number of them. So right here in pink, we can see that Henrik holding his hand. He's got little Yannick on his chest and Hendrik holding his hand, and the other kids huddled around. And there's another ha sound later on. That would be assonance. But here we can see Henrik holding his hand. This literary device seems to give a calming approach. There's not high tension here where horrible things are happening, but there's a note of resignation that what's going to happen is going to happen. And alliteration features that, but there's lots of it. Let's look at some more. So on page 135, Nazi soldiers with dogs are pushing people onto the train really roughly. More examples. Other kids start screaming. Nazi soldiers have grabbed them and are dragging them towards the train. These examples of alliteration are really quite powerful in the hands of this writer, and they evoke a much more melancholy, sad note of resignation in all this. And we have right at the end, outside people are screaming and dogs are barking and soldiers are shouting. But the loudest noises are the gunshots. So we have this literary device. And this really goes into the themes of chapter 15, where we have hopelessness for yourself. There's very little hope for them. Both Barney and Felix are feeling hopeless for themselves. But there's hope for Zelda. There's hope for others. And they're willing to sacrifice themselves for the good of Zelda. So there's this note of resignation, of hopelessness, of they're going where they're going and there's very little that they can do to stop that. They're not in control. But there's hope for others. And if there's hope for Zelda, they've got to put all their efforts into that. And they're prepared to sacrifice themselves for the good of others.